Janet from Try It Like It Create It, and I am here today working on a handbag for a wedding, and I am doing so with the Gwen Studios design team. And what I have in front of me so far is a piece of white craft foam I got at Walmart, and I have just kind of decided to use it as my template. I've folded it over so it's going to be a clutch type handbag. Let me just lift you up a little here so you can see what I'm doing. All right. So I've used this as my template. It started out 9 by 12, and I just cut it down a little bit to what I thought was a more comfortable size. I have my satin fabric here sitting off to the side, and then I have a plastic placemat that I got at the Dollar Tree, and I have laid my craft foam down and traced over it with a pencil, and I think I might just go over it again with a pen. Let me see if it gives me a better mark. Not as much. It doesn't, I'm not pushing terribly hard here, but I just want to give myself a guide. Okay, the pen's working a little better now. I want to give myself a guide here to cut down the plastic. And what this placemat is the support for the inside of the handbag. So I am just cutting it down with a pair of scissors. You could use a piece of maybe thin cardstock instead. So something similar in thickness to this placemat. And then we're going to just start building after we get the cutting part done here. All right, so let me move what we don't need out of the way here. And then our next step will be to cut down our satin fabric to also fit. So I have cut out my fabric. I have my foam. I have my plastic placemat cut down to size. And then I have my satin fabric from Gwen Studios. And you can see here I have the good side facing away from me. And I have cut it down to be larger. Okay, generously larger than my placemat. And I just wanted to show you I cut where the selvage edge was, and so I'm just going to cut that off. And your cutting of the fabric does not have to be perfect in any way because we're going to tuck in the sides. So there's no need to worry about how that is going to look. So the next thing you're going to need is some form of a paste, and I'm going to be using Nori. It's perfect paste for a perfect project. It's repositionable, it's water soluble, acid free, it's slow drying, so I could move this around. And the other thing is that it dries clear and invisible, and it doesn't soak through fabric, and that's a big point for this project. So I am going to cover the white side here of my placemat using a paintbrush and my paste. And so I'm just gonna generously glob it on here. In fact, if you wanted to spread it out, you could use like a credit card or a piece of cardstock. Let me see, I have a piece here that was from the craft foam, and I can just fold that in half and use that as a quick way to cover this. All right, and I'm doing this right on top of the satin because we're going to be attaching this to the satin as well as rolling it around the edge and attaching it some more. So there's a quick application, and I am just going to set that down on my satin fabric. To let you know off camera, I did go ahead and iron my satin to get a little bit of the wrinkle out of it. All right, let me wipe off some of the paste from my hands, and then I'm going to go into the corners here and just cut some of the corners away. And once again, as you can see, I'm not being so precise about how I'm cutting. I am just cutting excess fabric away from the corners. Okay, and I'm leaving a little bit extra there. Now if I need to, I can of course go back in and cut more off. Okay, so now I am definitely going to use my paintbrush because I want to paint this edge of the fabric and fold it over on all four sides. And so here you can see where I cut some of that fabric off. I may cut off some more. Let me grab a scrap piece of paper here and put it down on my work surface. Alright, so then that allows me to paint the fabric and actually paint off the edge of the fabric like so with the paste. Just making sure I've smoothed it out there. And then I'm going to take that edge and just fold it over and make sure that fold is nice and smooth. Now on the front side where I pasted, I want to go over it with my hand and make sure I have a nice smooth adhesion. Alright, so now I've created this edge, which is nice and smooth here. And then we're going to continue on with all four sides here. So once again, I'm just going to paint that edge of fabric. And because your placemat is plastic, I would not recommend using any heat to dry your paste. And to just kind of move the process along faster, I would actually glue and let it set until it's completely dry. So once again, I'm folding this edge under, bringing it back around to make sure I have a very nice fold on that edge. And then I'm going to go to the front and once again make sure it's nice and smooth. And I moved my glue surface out of the way so that I could work on this without transferring glue to the front of my handbag. Alright, so now I just have the two ends to finish up on. I have some glue here I don't want to get on the front of my handbag. Alright, so I'm going to fold this up and I will probably, let's see if I can get this in camera for you. I'm probably going to cut some of this excess off here. Okay, so before I glue, I'm just going to go in here and cut from that corner up. And I'll do that on all 4 corners. So I'm just going to pull up here towards the inside and cut a little extra off of that corner, just so we don't have quite as much thickness. It's my last corner here, and then I can glue. Alright, so now I just have the last 2 sides here. I'm going to put my paste on, and then I'm going to roll that edge up. Now everything that's happening on this side, the blue side of the mat, is going to get covered with that piece of foam, that white foam, and this is the inside of your handbag, okay? So you're not going to see any of that. Alright. So here's the last edge. I'm just going to put the paste on. Working in the corners, make sure I've got everything covered. And then I'm going to take my fabric up and over and just smooth that out. Okay. And once again, don't worry about the back side. Make sure your surface is nice and clean where you're working. And then, once again, I'm just going to go over this with my hands and make sure everything is nice and smooth and attached. And then I am going to let this dry. And just to show you how this will fold up, this will fold over to make our satin handbag. Alright, and we want to make sure that you can see how things are buckling here when I folded that to show you. So we want to make sure everything is glued down nice and flat and dry before we go any further with this process. So as my purse structure is off to the side drying, I have decided what the decorative element on the front is going to look like. And this is all ribbon from Gwen Studios. And kind of opened up everything, but I'll show you the packages. So here's the first package. And those are called Fancy Trim. And so is this one called Fancy Trim and Peach. And so what I have here is a piece of glittery ribbon, and I'm working on just a scrap piece of paper, and I am going to washi tape this down because it's the bottom piece of my decorative structure. And now I'm going to come in with some Fabri-Tac, and I am going to glue this piece down the center. So I want to cover all the center pieces or the center gems with my Fabri-Tac, so that when I'm ready to put my handbag together, this piece is already done and ready to go. So I am just going over these gem pieces here. Laying down some Fabri-Tac. Whoops, my washi tape let go. That's okay. So I just want a good amount of adhesive here. And it may look like I'm putting a ton down. I'm not getting a lot coming out at one time. So I'm just going over to make sure I have everything covered. And then I'm going to lay this piece right in there where I want it. Anything that comes up loose I can go back in and fix later. Alright, and then I'm going to stack this piece on top. Alright, so that tells me that I need to go down through the middle of this piece with my fabric tack. Set that off to the side, and then I'm going to attach this piece right down the center. Okay, and now I'm going to let that completely dry until tomorrow when I'm ready for the next step with putting our wedding handbag together. Now I wanted to lift it up off the paper in case any went through there. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to be stuck to the paper. So just a real quick double check. Just a little bit of movement. And we're just going to let that dry. Now that I have let my handbag dry overnight, the next step I want to do is put in the sides, and I'm using this foam, the same that we used on the inside. And what I've done is I've measured from here down to almost the bottom, and mine is about 3.5 inches. So I've cut my foam to be that tall, and then I'm going to glue to the front and then glue to the inside like so, and let that set. And eventually, once that dries, then this little thing will kind of gusset, hope that's the right terminology, that it will go in and fill in the side of the handbag like so. So that's my next step. I'm going to use fabric tack on this, and I'm going to glue along the edge, and then probably at least over about 1/2 inch on both sides. So to start, just to show you a start here, and then I may finish this off camera, but working on getting my fabric tack to come out, and I'm gonna run that along this edge, and then probably another line just about 1/2 inch over. And I'm not measuring, I'm just kind of eyeballing that placement. And then I'm going to line that inside here. Alright, and glue that in place. And now I'm going to do the same for the other side. While I have those side panels drying, I have some weighted pieces on top of them holding them in place, which is kind of stretching the bag in an odd way. But while that's sitting there, I thought I would go ahead and add my decoration onto the front of my handbag. And so once again, I'm going to do this with fabric tack, and I am just going to add the adhesive all over the front of this panel, and then we're going to attach it to the handbag. So turning my glue upside down here to get out as much as I can, and then we're going to apply it to this piece. So I'm going to do that and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like. So I think I have enough fabric tack on there to hold this in place, and I wanted to show you that I added a whole bunch of extra on the ends because I want that to hold on to the inside. And so I am laying this along the front edge, and then it's going to wrap around and glue to the inside. So you just want to make sure that that looks visually straight. And then I'm going to use my sewing clips here to just kind of hold that in place for a little bit. And then I'm just going to run my finger along the decoration to make sure it's being held down in place well. And then we're getting close to being finished here. We just need to finish gluing the sides, and then we will secure the closure, which I think I'm going to use Velcro. I thought about using snaps, but I like the idea of Velcro because it can adjust. So now that I have this down, I just want to kind of double check where I'm at and make sure I'm pretty close to being the same all the way across. And I am, so I'm good with that. I'm going to let that dry. So just to finish off the other side, just adding more glue like I did on the first side. Hopefully you can see, I know my arms, my hands are getting in the way here as I apply the glue, but as soon as I move, you can see I've put 2 rows of glue there. And I'm going to then fold that to the back of my handbag, and we're going to glue it in place. But I'm going to pinch this shut pretty tight to line up the front and the back of that piece of foam. See how those kind of now line up together? So that's an awkward pinch for the bag, but I want to make sure that they line up correctly. And then you can just go in and use, you know, binder clips or fabric clips to hold those pieces in place while they dry. So you may even want to reach in with your fingers and give them a pinch while they're in there. I think I could take the clips off of those. Alright, and so now I'm just going to let this sit to dry. You can kind of start to get a sense of what it's going to look like when it's done. Okay. I'm just checking both sides out. Make sure everything's looking good. Looks like I may have a little bit more foam to tuck in on this side than the other, and so I want to do that while it's still wet. So just adjust that a little bit. Alright, and then I'll come back and show it to you when it's dry. So for the final touches here, just to show you that you may find that you need to go back in and touch up a few places with glue, but to show you how the sides turned out with the foam, you just, once it's dried or even, you know, tacked in place, well, you can push those sides in. And so then once the bag is closed, you can see that we don't see those sides anymore, and we just have the decoration. And so the last step here is I'm going to add 2 Velcro dots that have their own adhesive on it, but I'm just going to add a little extra just to make sure that they stick in place. And so to begin, I am just going to put some on each dot. I've already got them together, the male and the female together there. and I'm going to place them on the inside flap of my handbag here. So right down here along the bottom. So there's the first one. And then here's the second one. Alright. And then to hold everything tight, we're going to push that down so that those are in place. But before I do that, I want to put just a little extra adhesive on there. Just a drop on each. And then also show you that in addition to the handbag, I made a little lipstick case in the same way. It was made with the foam and the satin, and then for a closure I used a snap, and the inside is foam, so it just snaps shut and goes right inside there. And when I glued the sides here, I held the foam kind of at a circular shape, you know, to hold the lipstick. So that goes in the inside. And then I just want to get this so it's going to shut right how I want it to. And I'm going to pinch that tight. So even if the Velcro doesn't stay put, and it does seem to be doing fine, but I'm going to say if it doesn't stay put with that glue on there, I can at least see where those dots should go, and that's holding it shut. So I'm going to let that dry before I start pulling on that Velcro, and just to be safe, I'm just going to clip this shut so that there isn't any pull on the Velcro and the glue while it's drying. But we're going to call that finished.